Hello, my name is Steve Lesko, and I'm an audio engineer. I specialize in sound design and dialogue cleanup. And today I wanted to kind of show my process for when I get to work with voiceovers. So a while ago, I was given this audio clip by a company that focuses on historical education, and they wanted to see what kind of sound design I could come up with. This particular one is about Sam Houston, the founder of the Republic of Texas, and it starts from when he defeated Santa Anna, when he won the battle at San Jacinto Creek, all the way up to the Civil War. So let's take a listen to what we're working with here.
If any man can claim the right to hold the title of the founding father of Texas, it must surely be Sam Houston. Revered as the Lone Star's version of Washington, Houston's name is exalted above all others, and for ample reason.
So it's a really solid voiceover. The artist did a great job, and there wasn't a whole lot that I even had to do with this. I did run it through my iZotope RX software just to help him out and clean up a couple of things here and there. He had some hard plosives. You can probably tell it's a little punchy, it's a little loud. Also, there was definitely some editing done on the voiceover talent's end. I'm guessing it's just part of his room tone. There's this really high-end hiss that you almost don't notice until he stops talking, and then all of a sudden it disappears. And yeah, that would probably be covered up after I finish all the sound design, but I don't even like to take that chance. So just ran it through RX and took out some of that high-end hiss to help him out there. Once I'd taken out some of the mouth noises and clicks and pops, then I got to just get creative. And I knew that I needed to start off with finding some really good music. So I did a little searching online, and I came up with this cowboy theme music. We'll take a listen here. It's such great music. I thought it really fit that cowboy theme, the Lone Star spirit. So this is what I started out with. Originally, I had planned to have some sort of transition into a more military style, especially since they end this voiceover talking about the lead up to the Civil War, but it just really wasn't working out the way I wanted it to. So instead, I ended up keeping this music, and then I just added a little bit of snare. Here it is without it. And here it is with it. So I was able to find a snare recording that sounded close enough, and then I did tweak it just a little bit so that they wouldn't clash too much. So that was basically it for the music bed. Everything else is just sound effects. So the idea behind this experimental sound design is that this is something that can be given to kids as a different form of media for them to learn history, something maybe a little bit more engaging. So knowing that, I thought I should try to find as many sound effects as I can that would match what the narrator is saying. And as it turned out, there wasn't a lot that I could just throw in there. There were a couple, like a gavel or a couple gunshots. But really, I ended up having to create scenes happening behind the words. So most of these sound effects that you see on here are crowd noises. The beginning of this audio clip talks about Sam Houston in a very positive light, but by the end, the public opinion of Houston has really soured. So I have these crowd noises that pick up in intensity as the recording goes on. So I'll play a little sample here. This is one of the first ones you'll hear, and it's while he's talking about people having issue with his stances in the government. Then you can see here, I did something very similar, even angrier, and I'll add in the voiceover here.
To avert this calamity, I shall make no endeavor to maintain my authority as chief executive of this state, except by the peaceful exercise of my functions.
So you have some good boos in there and just overall growing intensity in the crowd's size and their anger. The other things that I had put in terms of sound effects is when he's talking about the different battles that he was a part of. So you've got some nice battle sounds here. I'll play them for you. The tricky part here was just making sure that it helped drive home the point in the narration, but also that it didn't overtake any of the dialogue. And then finally, this is when basically all hell is breaking loose, and it's right before the Civil War is about to start. And I actually found some recordings online of authentic Confederate rebel yells. And so they're the little yips that you hear in this recording, but I loved throwing them in. Right there at the end. Those were the rebel yells. So the last thing I did was actually separate part of the narration, because the narrator did that classic thing where he's talking about the character, but then he also becomes the character, like he's reading from a letter or a diary entry. But it wasn't quite working for me because I thought it was just too similar. There needed to be some more separation. I tried to make the character appear more in the scene to the listener, and I did that by lowering his volume a little bit, adding some ambient reverb. I actually down-pitched it a full step just to help him separate from his own voice just a little bit. So that's what you see here on the green track here. In addition to making it a clearer split, I think it actually helps make the character of Sam Houston even more epic and larger than life. So here's an example of that.
Houston declared,
"If Mr. Lincoln be elected, we have no excuse for dissolving the Union."
And I get that probably does sound a little funny out of context, but with all the other stuff going on in the background and with the music bed, here is the final version.
Houston declared,
"If Mr. Lincoln be elected, we have no excuse for dissolving the Union."
So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it for this sound design. It's really nice when you don't have that much actual cleanup to have to do. All I did with this guy again was I gave him some compression, put some polish on his voice with some minor processing, took out some plosives and some high-end hiss from the room noise, and then threw in some gunshots, battle sounds, a little bit of Confederate rebel cries, and then a killer music bed. And now you've got one awesome story about the Lone Star State's founding father, Sam Houston. Thanks for watching this walkthrough video of my process of building a sound design. I hope you enjoyed it, and without further ado, here is the finished product.
the hero of San Jacinto Falls. If any man can claim the right to hold the title of the founding father of Texas, it must surely be Sam Houston. Revered as the Lone Star's version of Washington, Houston's name is exalted above all others, and for ample reason. As general commanding the infant Texan army against the Mexican forces of General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, Houston won a decisive victory at San Jacinto Creek late in April 1836, securing Texas's independence from a defeated Santa Anna. Twice elected president of the Lone Star Republic, he remains the only leader of a sovereign nation to serve in the U.S. Congress as senator for the state he once ruled. But Houston's relationship with Texas soured on the eve of the Civil War. As governor, he was adamantly opposed to secession, but as a slaveholder, he did not favor the Republicans. Still, in a speech given in Austin over a month before the 1860 presidential election, Houston declared,
"If Mr. Lincoln be elected, we have no excuse for dissolving the Union. The Union is worth more than Mr. Lincoln. And if the battle is to be fought for the Constitution, let us fight it in the Union and for the sake of the Union."
His anti-secessionist views put him in hot water with his fellow Texans, many of whom openly derided him and even threatened his person with violence and death. After Lincoln's electoral victory, Texas voted to secede, and Houston bowed to the will of the people, but refused to give his oath to the Confederacy.
"I love Texas too well to bring civil strife and bloodshed upon her,"
read his final gubernatorial address.
"To avert this calamity, I shall make no endeavor to maintain my authority as chief executive of this state, except by the peaceful exercise of my functions."
If Houston deemed that he could no longer perform these duties, he promised to
calmly withdraw from the scene, leaving the government in the hands of those who have usurped its power.
Old and weary, the last of Texas's founding generation, Houston acknowledged that it was perhaps best that,
my career should end thus.
but that it was the
Severest pang that the blow comes in the name of the state of Texas.